щойно побачила, як летить ракета. І я почула це.
Pete, welcome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Todd. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. So, wow, a lot's happened since we last talked. Russia's making progress. They said yesterday that they have control fully of Luhansk, which is one of the original oblasts where all this started. I have a map which I can bring up, but tell us what you see on the front right now.
Yeah, I'll also tell you what I'm hearing from guys who are on the ground in Kyiv, and that I'll start with that they're seeing they've been seeing it through June, but it's really hitting a pitch now. Life is much different in Kyiv. People are definitely fleeing. The people who don't live there and who have the option to flee. The people who do live there are living like the Brits in World War II. Going underground at nighttime, living in fear. Anyone who can get out, my two of my sources say, is getting out and has been since the beginning of June. Not coincidentally, we had 5 nights in June where Russia had 500 attacks by drones and combination drones, missiles in the Ukraine region, but Kyiv took the concentration, the majority of those. We talked, I think, in our last episode about the Russian military industrial production and how it ramped up to allow them to use 500 drones a night, and they're definitely there right now.
That's a big change, right? Because just a couple of years ago, they were talking about gold leaf facials in Kyiv, and everybody was living the life and lots of good looking girls and people were just having a great time. And so that's changed, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And it changed pretty much on a dime. I mean, historically, we'll always be able to go back to the strategic bomber, drone attack from trucks that Ukraine pulled off. It really, as we talked on this show again, did nothing for the front lines, did nothing as far as affecting the war, was a massive PR event, but an ill thought, poorly thought out event. And Russia just took the gloves off after that. I think also, to step back, and we'll go back to your map because I want to talk some terrain in a bit.
Sure.
But I think also, can read into it anyway, because we'll never know what went on personally between Putin and President Trump back after that attack on the Russian strategic bombers. But we had the Iran situation pop up, and the world focus was on the Middle East, and it was during that time that Russia tripled down on everything they were doing. It gave them the impetus to, hey, we're gonna finish this thing, and we don't care what any world press says. I would add to that the double dilemma that the West has put itself in by trying not to cover this war to show what's really happening on the front line. They have no one to cover the war, and so there's no Western press showing what's happening either in Kyiv or on the front lines. There's no one running around asking people who are going, getting on the train to Poland or getting in their cars to head to Poland. There's no one asking these people, hey, what are you doing? What's going through your mind right now? But that's what's happening.
That's a good point, because it's like karma, right? I mean, they shut down any press coverage, and now that's biting them in the butt, because it's an info war, and if you don't have anybody shooting on your side of the info war, then you lose, right?
Yeah, very true. And the whole story about the bodies.
Hmm.
There's still more bodies. Ukraine tried to turn it into a positive PR for them. They found a body that they said was a Russian body among the
Right.
6,000 initial tranche, and that has since been dismissed. Russia got out in front of it, but Zelensky even tried to show that to Trump in Europe. That's what
Wow.
that video of him pulling out a piece of paper. It was the ID from one of those guys.
Hmm.
But that's another thing that's showing what's going on, and there's plenty of pictures. We won't show them.
Right.
Uh, you just shake your head. They're leaving all these dead bodies in Sunni, uh, you know, just littering the ground. And it shows you two things. It shows you a command that doesn't really care, but it shows
Hmm.
you the nature of how this terrain's being taken. It's being taken uh, in a chaotic way. It's not controlled. Retrograde by Ukraine. These are panicking retreats, and such panic that they're leaving wounded and dead behind. So those
Well,
numbers are piling up too. You can go back
there
to
was
the map now.
let me interrupt you real quick. There was a report out that the defenses that were supposed to be built outside Sumy were just not built, and I think the quote was they just tilled up the earth with a backhoe instead of actually building entrenchments that the Ukrainians could use, and they spent billions of dollars or whatever. That was a lot of money, and somebody just took the money, and they're left with no defenses. Have you heard anything about that?
I have, and it's
Yeah.
it's true. It again went it the real discoveries. There were videos. We'll show them on the next episode. There are
Mhm.
videos that show these 18-inch trenches that were
Mhm.
scraped out of the ground, and they show that guys were in them, laying in them before they retreated. Again, corruption rearing its ugly head. We've talked about that corruption that's permeated the Ukrainian military. And, probably some NGO was tasked with doing that, with the engineering tasks to do that. And,
Yeah.
what the results are catastrophic. So Russia in the last month has taken 790 square kilometers, which is a lot. And again, for our viewers, they understand this is a light infantry war. It There's no blitzkrieg because you can't use armor columns, so it's shoe leather express. And 790 kilometers in a month is a lot of territory.
Yeah.
And the Russians just continue what works incrementally. They chip away at the flanks to find weaknesses until they get to a point where it's pretty obvious to the Ukrainian military that they're about to be surrounded, and then they put pressure at the front, for frontal pressure, and the lines bend and break every time, and that's
Mm.
what's pretty much been happening over and over on those front lines. And the manpower shortage is very apparent too. The word on the street in Kyiv is that it's catastrophic, and of course, the same thing's going on around Kyiv and around Ukraine, which is the forced conscription.
Right.
Uh, and no one in the West sees that, but you've been showing it on your show. I think it's important to show because uh, we've watched it through all its phases. We've seen it. We've seen it when it started. We've seen it continue on. We saw it really from 23 on get really bad, and of course now what you have is civilians joining in and helping the force conscriptor pounding on the guys who are in charge of doing this conscripting. And what you're seeing is those guys aren't fighting back, which shows you that they understand why the civilians are pounding on their back. They actually are showing they have some empathy for them. But it's kind of like, hey,
Right.
this is my job. I got to keep doing it. And so that continues to go on. They're very close to a breaking point here. You mentioned Luhansk has been 100% liberated now, and the offer from Budapest is looking pretty good, and once again looking like it should have been taken by Zelensky. The final thing I'll mention is
this one. Well, go ahead. I was going to say I could show that
no,
video of
you.
the.
But I want to see that video, and then we'll go to.
All right, all right.
Такая хуйня у нас внутри с ней происходит. Просто,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that
a picture's worth 1,000 words. We show them to our viewers so that because there's no other media that'll show it. But just think about that. That one's from 2 days ago. This is still happening every day all over the country. You cannot fight a war when that's happening, and you can, of course, you can't win a war. And to kind of summarize what you're really seeing in these weeks right now is the collapse of the global propaganda network. You're seeing direct evidence at what massive lies this has been, and how they've been perpetrated by Zelensky himself, and of course all the EU heads and the Western U.S. influencers, including all the retirees you and I have pointed out in the past.
Yeah, I want to get to what I really want to expose now in this phase is what the real agenda was, because it definitely wasn't for the people of Ukraine. It wasn't for freedom. It wasn't. What is the real agenda? I have a feeling we're going to find out we were fighting somebody else's war, and this is like old ethnic hatreds or something that we are in the globalist agenda to wear down Russia, but it definitely wasn't for the people of Ukraine. That is a joke.
Yeah, well, you're a historian. The Brits have a institutionalized, bizarre hatred of Russia. It's almost like a big brother, little brother, or it's a weirdest thing from past wars hundreds of years ago, and it makes no sense. But those leaders, those EU leaders, are still sticking by their guns, and they're still claiming they're going to support Zelensky. You saw, I think, just yesterday, the U.S. canceled, verbally told the Ukrainians, "We have no more air defense missiles for you." The unspoken message there was right there. You go. The unspoken message was, we used a giant chunk of those up in the Middle East war. And, this is common sense for the U.S. America first.
It's a good thing. It's what you and I have been calling for.
Yep. And it's what really, it's given Trump, it's real, but it allows the American administration to, just say, we're no more. We're not giving you any more weapons.
Special report. Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
And I have confidence. We've been saying this the whole time, even during the Middle East crisis, that the relationship between Trump and Putin is strong enough, and it's solid enough, and their discussions are formative enough that Trump knows he can't keep supporting them, or it really is his war. And he can also see now, I believe everybody, including, the last ditch propagandists who the administration, we've covered it, has a few of them embedded, are seeing the writing on the wall right now. What I mentioned in Kyiv cannot be lost on DC, because the only thing the State Department and most of the agency staff that's in Ukraine do is write cables on their computers.
Yeah.
And their biggest job is to write about, the temperament of the people and what's happening. And you can see what's happening in Kyiv. Anyone, and it's very obvious. And there's a sense of panic going on there.
Interesting.
My buddies both say it's palpable. All the little things are showing up. So things have changed, and what's going to happen next is pretty obvious. Russia's going to continue moving, and I think even Zelensky right now has got to be, scratching his head, thinking, what do I do? Do I let him go all the way to the river, or do I bend a little bit here? And then he's got the dilemma with the ultranationalist neo-Nazis who are threatening his life. But that's why Russia won't bend on their demands for denazification. They understand that. And so, Zelensky's got some big choices to make here.
Let me ask you, I'm going to play something. It's about 2 minutes. I won't play all of it, but this is an arrest of Russian spies in Azerbaijan. So this whole conflict is popping up here. So this is an old frozen conflict of the Soviet Union. Azerbaijan was a Soviet Socialist Republic. So was Armenia, and you had the Nagorno-Karabakh region, which popped off a couple of years ago. Again, an old frozen, Christian-Muslim conflict. But now you have the Azeris going after Moscow. Arrested some people in Russia that they said were criminals, and then the Azeris arrested people, as you see, and then you had the media shutdown in Azerbaijan of Sputnik and other Russian operations. Do you know anything about this? I mean, my sense is there's more to it, because I think Azerbaijan was helping Ukraine, and I think there's a whole bigger picture to this than what we just see between the two countries.
Yeah, I think it's tit for tat. I'd have to tap into some people I know who have gone in and out of there to get a better assessment. That video, could show a million things. The fact they pulled that guy out and he was kind of slovenly in a suit makes him look more like he's just one of the
just another guy in a tracksuit in Eastern Europe.
He's an oligarch. He's a guy who makes money, right? And unfortunately drove into a roadblock that had a camera at it. So, but it's definitely heating up, and geographically, I don't know if you have a map. A lot of people don't understand that geography, and how that's why one reason why Georgia is so important to Russia. And of course, 2 countries later, you're down in Turkey. So it's a very important flank for Russia. And Todd, a color revolution, the whole color revolution staff is still holding on by a thread in Georgia. They lost the election, but they spent billions of dollars on Georgia trying to flip it. And a great article came out in the European press the other day, and I'll find that for you. And it showed a map from 1946 on. The U.S. has captained 147 regime changes across the globe. And as you know, in one of my papers on Substack, I advocate that we need a law. We need to outlaw color revolutions with a presidential decision directive, just like 12333, which is an anti-assassination. No government employee is allowed to assassinate a foreign individual leader unless it's approved by the president or a special congressional committee behind closed doors. And it's got to be for color revolutions too, because it's a good time always to remind people, we started, the US and the EU started the Ukraine war in 2014. And that's what the war is about. We overthrew the duly elected government of Ukraine and allowed in the power vacuum, the neo-Nazis to start the war that caused Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk to initially secede, to vote for autonomy first, then independence.
There was 10,000 people. 10,000 people were killed before 2022. So that war had been going on for 8 years.
And horrifically too. Most of those were civilians, randomly bombed. We were just lobbing artillery. That's what most of those 7 years were. So, that's why, to me, I think the president, and again, he's surrounded by, he only knows what he's told because he's got the whole world as his decision-making playground. But we don't need to, walk, kind of nestle around the edges gingerly. We just need to come to grips with what happened and make it right. It wasn't the American people. It wasn't the United States. It was Biden administration administrators, non-appointed
it was the blob.
officials. Right. And they overthrew it. And we're seeing that today. And we could end this by simply, going to the table and saying what you and I have been advocating for. We're pulling out to Zelensky. You either sign this now. And if you think about that, if you really care about Ukrainians, you do that, because he's going to lose the entire eastern half of the country. It's pretty obvious. They're very close to a collapse right now, and they have no hope. There's 50,000 Russian troops are right now poised to attack in the Sunni region, and
I saw that. Yeah.
What Ukraine's been doing is, the whack-a-mole game, trying to move forces around, and they can't do it anymore. They can't do it logistically. They just don't have enough people to do it. And Russian intel and Russian recon, ISI, is too effective for them to do it. So they're going to find the soft spot, and there's going to be a breakthrough very quickly.
Well, you talk about the color revolutions. It's just winning the hearts and minds, man. That's what we're doing, right?
Well, yeah. Well, you're right, and so again, the talk about eating crow. All of these influencers who praise Zelensky and have continued to praise him, and a couple of the retired generals that we've quoted, brilliant, Churchillian, and it's the exact opposite. History will show he's the joker. He's the real fool who's just put in front of the cameras. He hasn't just lost the hearts and minds of the Ukrainians. He never had them. And he's turned them against, the Ukrainians, like many countries, are very nationalistic. They love their country, physically love it, which you and I have both been there. It's easy to physically love Ukraine. It's a gorgeous country. from border to border. The people are fantastic people, and he has done nothing for them but forced them into this predicament. They have no economy now. They've lost 1 million men. So, you know, they're in a real dilemma, and that's what I mean. If the U.S. really cares about him, they should be having a face-to-face discussion with him and saying, hey, this looks like your last chance to have any terrain east of the river. And if you don't act now, you're going to lose the whole thing. You're for sure going to be overthrown because he's poked the bear enough. They are not going to allow him in power, but at least he could fly off to one of his properties.
I was going to say that. I mean, one of the most evil things he's done is, he started this war. He enabled what is going on, but he also removed any. If you think about it, he removed the Christian faith from the Ukrainian people, or at least he tried to. So in the middle of a conflict, when they would need it the most, where 90-something% of the people are members of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, he removed that from them and destroyed or tried to destroy the church. So even if he goes to, Palm Beach or wherever his houses are, Monaco, I think after this nuclear attack, Putin, the long arm of Russia, will find him eventually. I mean, that's just, Putin has a way of doing that, blowing planes out of the sky or radioactive tea or something,
Well, we love to say that about Putin, but he's at best he's number 2 in the world at it, because we've been, as we just said, we've been doing stuff, but it's not 146 peaceful changes of power. It's 146 just sheer diabolical, anything goes to overthrow people that we didn't like. And again, to our viewers, you and I we're the last guys to claim we're like peaceniks or, there's never a reason for something. But the dilemma, the problem is all 146 are run by, and the decisions made about how to run them are done by these government administrators, these ambassadors, these chiefs of station, these military mill group commanders, these individuals that they're not representing the American people. They're representing a thought process that someone put in their head, and then they just flail until they overturn it. In most cases, there's no real plan for what to do afterwards. That was one of the many problems with what they did in Ukraine. There was no plan for what they do when they overthrew Yanukovych. And that's why the neo-Nazis filled the power vacuum, and it was uncontrollable for at least the first 120 days. And that cemented the foundation of how they were going to act after that. By the end of 120 days, when they actually installed a government, it was too late. The neo-Nazis and ultranationalists controlled everything. And the rest is the history that has taken us to where we're at today.
Well, great information, Pete. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. As I said, I know you're in high demand, so thank you for coming on today. And anything else you want to get out?
No, that was great. And we'll keep watching it, and I'll take a look at Azerbaijan and Armenia for our next show.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go there actually, personally, and get eyeballs on what's happening over, because there's so much happening there with the persecution of the Christians, which is becoming a big focus of our show in general. But Pete, thank you very much, man. We'll see you next week if possible.
Thank you, Todd. Take care.